In today's readings of Reincarnation, we are going to enter the political realm as well as prophecies through reincarnation in regards to politics. And I will also be speaking of certain politicians and how they have been prophesized. But first, let's get into what does death mean? Death means forgetting your last life. After death, one forgets everything about the present bodily relationships. We have little experience of this at night when we go to sleep. While sleeping, we forget everything about this body and bodily functions or relations. And although this forgetfulness is a temporary situation, only lasts for a few hours. Death is nothing but sleeping for a few months in order to develop another term of bodily encagement, which we are awarded by the law of nature according to our aspiration. Therefore, one has only to change the aspiration during the course of this present body, and for this there is need of training in the current duration of human life. This training can be begun at any stage of life, or even a few seconds before death, but the usual procedure is for one to get the training from very early life. The soul takes a human form first. And, well, we're going to just leave that as it is as far as the physical bodies and what we choose to come back as. And I'll get into that in a future discussion because, like I said, I have a very heartfelt and deep personal story that involves reincarnation. And that's still yet to come. Ignorance of reincarnation is dangerous. Modern civilization is based on family comforts, the highest standard of amenities, and therefore, after retirement, everyone expects to live a very comfortable life in a well-furnished home decorated with fine ladies and children without any desire to get out of such a comfortable home. High government officers and ministers stick to their prized posts until death, and they neither dream nor desire to get out of homely comforts. Bound by such hallucinations, materialistic men prepare various plans for a still more comfortable life. But suddenly, cruel death comes without mercy and takes away the great plan maker against his desire, forcing him to give up the present body for another body. Such a plan maker is thus forced to accept another body in one of the 8,400,000 species of life according to the fruits of the work that he has performed. In the next life, persons who were too much attached to family comforts are generally awarded lower species of life on account of sinful acts performed during a long duration of sinful life, and thus all the energy of the human life is spoiled. In order to be saved from the danger of spoiling the human form and being attached to unreal things, one must take warning of death at the age of 50, if not earlier. Okay? The principle is that one should take it for granted that the death warning is already there, even prior to the attainment of 50 years of age, and thus at any stage of life one should prepare himself for a better life. I turned 50 years old 7 years ago. Part of my life died just before I turned 50. But that is yet another story. Go away, mosquito. Okay. Politicians are reborn in their countries. At the time of death, every living entity worries about what will happen to his wife and children. Similarly, a politician also worries about what will happen to his country or his political party. A politician or so-called nationalist, ooh, I'm getting bit here. A politician or so-called nationalist who is inordinately attached to the land of his birth will certainly be reborn in the same land after ending his political career. One's next life will also be affected by the acts of one that performs during this life. Sometimes politicians act most sinfully for their own sense gratification. It is not unusual for a politician to kill the opposing party. We're going to get to that, okay? I told you this is going to be a banger. Sorry for the pun, that was not intentional. Even though a politician may be allowed to take birth in a so-called homeland, he still has to undergo suffering due to his sinful activities in his previous life. Now then, that is the word from India. BB King, or excuse me, not BB King, BB Netanyahu. There was an arrest warrant issued, an international arrest warrant for his crimes against humanity. This is the first step of the prophecy of Israel being destroyed. There's a reason, a very, very strong reason, why Israel's at war, why Ukraine is at war, and why the United States is so heavily focused on those two countries. We have in this book here, New Testament. I guess I'm using this pocket-sized edition here. Very old, in fact. Just because of convenience sake. I'm out here in the woods, carrying books, carrying cat food. And yes, I do feel that a lot of explanation is needed for this episode. So we have talk here in Revelation about the Antichrist. Your pastors, preachers, priests, reverends, ministers, they all speak of the Antichrist in the same context. Demonic, evil, so on and so forth. That's a false narrative, in a sense. So, what else was in the news this morning regarding politics? Donald Trump is now, because of something that he said, they are viewing him as basically a defender of Adolf Hitler. At least that's how I am seeing this. They are trying to, link him with Adolf Hitler. Well, according to many sources, Adolf Hitler was the second Antichrist. What is an Antichrist? As I have explained in many past videos, it is not anti-Jesus. Christ means leader. That is what the Romans would label a leader. So you have anti-leadership. What has Donald Trump been trying to do? Bring down the corrupt. Drain the swamp. He is the man that has gone against the norm of politics, if you will. Caesar was the first Antichrist. Adolf Hitler was the second Antichrist. And I have already come out and labeled Donald Trump as a third Antichrist. But once again, get that religious garbage out of your heads. Because after all, what is the book of the Revelation? Or the book of Revelations? However, you remember that through the Mandela effect. It is nothing more than the timeline and storyline of what to expect as we are going into a new age. So, we have the Bible that has predicted this Antichrist. We have the Bible that also speaks of the beast and the image of the beast. I've already put out that. Barack Obama was the beast. For some reason, he has not been charged with committing genocide while being president. Nostradamus speaks of Obama. He speaks of Biden. He speaks of Donald Trump. But yet everybody wants to think that all prophecies revolve around Israel. There's been a false narrative for centuries regarding the Bible. Nostradamus was a devout Catholic. So let's go ahead and let's get into some of what he has to say, and I'm going to clarify that much more. For more than 500 years they will take notice of him who was the adornment of his age. Then suddenly a great revelation will be made, which will make the people of that century well pleased. This is somebody that basically is being prophesied for unlocking the mysteries of Nostradamus during the end times. Now it says here by a man that studied Nostradamus very deeply, is that basically about the year 2055 the truth of his prophecies will be recognized and embraced by the entire world, speaking of Nostradamus. Or the person that reveals the mysteries of Nostradamus' prophecies. When 20 years of the moon's reign have passed, another will take up his rule for 7,000 years. When the sun takes up its final cycle, then will my prophecy and warnings be accomplished. Have we seen a change in the sun? The coloration from that yellow-orange to that white-yellow? 2012, the Mayan calendar ended, right? Well, back then, everybody was flipping out thinking, oh, it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world, because somebody misunderstood the prophecy through that Mayan calendar. It was the end of a ruler's reign. What caused that ending? Well, 2012, CERN went into operation. How much of a connection that actually has, I'm not sure yet. But I thought I'd throw that out there. Let's continue on. Because it's going to get very interesting. Okay, at one point, Nostradamus brings up heaven on earth. And that is yet another story. Revelation chapter 21 explains what that heaven on earth actually is. And we'll get there too. The body without a soul is no longer at the sacrifice. At the day of death, it comes to rebirth. The divine spirit will make the soul rejoice, seeing the eternity of the world. At the day of death, it comes to rebirth. Does that not sound like reincarnation? The divine word will give to the sustenance, that which contains heaven and earth, occult gold, in the mystic act. Body, soul, and spirit are all powerful. Everything is beneath his feet, as at the seat of heaven. The divine word. Reincarnation. Occult gold. In the mystic act. What have I stated about gold and the gods? Body, soul, and spirit are all powerful. What did I say about the separation of soul and spirit? Even Nostradamus knew that they were different. Spirit is to the mind as the soul is to the body. The Antichrist returns for the last time. All the Christian and infidel nations will tremble. For the space of 25 years, wars and battles will be more grievous than ever. Towns, cities, citadels, and all other structures will be destroyed. So many evils by Satan's prince will be committed that almost the entire world will find itself undone and desolated. Before these events, many rare birds will cry in the air, now, now, and sometime later will vanish. Well, what were those birds? I have told you before. I showed you the recorded news clip of the Palestinians crying out, now, now. And sometime later will vanish. The end of the Palestinians, or the end of Palestine. And it speaks of so many evils by Satan's prince will be committed. This book, Nostradamus, speaks of the beast that comes before the Antichrist. Barack Obama, when he was president, they built him a new limo. Higher tech armored vehicle, his limo. And it was named the Beast. Now we have Joe Biden. Oh, Biden, many people call him, because they claim that Barack Obama is still in control, the puppet master over Joe Biden. Right? The image of the beast. And what did Joe Biden actually come out and state? I don't care if you think that I am Satan reincarnated. Satan's prince. This administration and that past administration of Obama is very corrupt, very evil, and I'm going to further prove it. Now, check this out. The king will want to enter the new city. They will come to subdue it through its enemies. A captive, falsely faced to speak and act. The king will be outside, will stay far away from the enemy. Now let's go ahead and read the author's words here. This appears to be a prediction involving New York City that Nostradamus sees as under attack. This book was wrote in 1998. Okay? 9/11, 2001, we had the so-called attack on the Twin Towers. But what is Nostradamus explaining here, and who is he talking about? Well, he is speaking of George Bush Jr. A captive, falsely faced to speak and act. The garden of the world near the new city in the road of the Hollow Mountains. It will be seized and plunged in the tank, forced to drink water poisoned with sulfur. The water supply in New York City was reported to be contaminated during that period of time. The Hollow Mountains was the Twin Towers. In 1998, the writer, the author, says, this has not happened to date, so this quatrain must be regarded as futuristic and probably a millennium quatrain as well. We are in that new millennium, people. Another past quatrain here. In the fortunate country of Arabia will be born one powerful in the laws of Muhammad. He will trouble Spain and conquer Grenada, as well as most of the Ligurian nation from the sea. Now, this was classified back then as a failed prediction or prophecy. But let's go on about this person, because this is the one that supposedly comes before that prophesied Antichrist. He will be born of the Gulf and the unmeasurable city, born of dark and obscure parents. So we got a person that took up Islam. We know of two Americans, well-known Americans, that changed their given American names for that of Muslim names. Muhammad Ali and Barack Hussein Obama. Obama was trained in the works of Islam. He will be born of dark and obscure parents. Obscure parents. What was the main issue about Barack Obama? His birth certificate. Still never really got to see the birth certificate, just a certificate of live birth, as far as us in the public. His background is still obscure. The third Antichrist very soon annihilates everything. 27 years of blood his war will last. The unbelievers dead. Captive, exiled with blood, human bodies, water and red hail covering the earth. Oh, and and that is speaking of Donald Trump, but then once again, let's go back to Obama, because one more quatrain gives a description over this person that comes before the Antichrist, which I declare as being Obama. Blood will flow because of a young, dark man filled with evil. Once again, Barack Obama committed genocide. He was never truthful or honest, I should say. Not truthful, but realistic or honest about his life, and still isn't. The one reason why Nostradamus seems so obsessed with the theme of the Antichrist, experts say, because in this day, just about any non-Christian or non-believer, or at least those few who dare to speak out and risk the fierce and certain wrath of the Inquisition, might be labeled as an Antichrist. See, speaking out against the narratives. And that extended to political leaders who were merely hostile to the all-powerful and traditional Christian church. How often do we see Donald Trump in past recordings to where there were prayers and he would stand there looking around? Yeah, he understands the futility of prayer. It's empty. It goes nowhere. You have the power within you. You are your own God because of your spirit and soul. When 20 years of the moon's reign have passed, another will take up its rule for 7,000 years. When the sun takes up its final cycle, then will my prophecy and warnings be accomplished. Now, this states, and this is where I'm going to the nitty-gritty here, and I'm putting it out there because I no longer care, because this information needs to be put out there. It states in the Bible that the Antichrist at some point will be struck down and will come back to life and take a blow to the head. And we've seen many images out there about Donald Trump being assassinated. I'm much like, okay, Jesus never dying on the cross. As far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump won't die either. But then, remember, there's double meanings to most everything, and you have to think about it. Donald Trump has already been getting the blows to the head. They have been trying to cut off his head so that he cannot return as president. They know the prophecies. They know what it's all about. And that's why there is a struggle for power now. And it's going to get really gritty and dirty. Okay, so let's go to the Democrat Party and my observations throughout my lifetime. The Democrat Party seems to have this theme to come in first over everything. The first black person, the first woman of color, the first woman to take this position, yada, yada, yada. First, first, first. They always want that first place ribbon. You know why? Because they, in the end run, lose the race. And people, here's an example, and this is tough. When there were interviews with Barack Obama within the Oval Office, he had a sculptured bust that would sit on the ledge right behind him. And who was this person? Biden. Whenever he is interviewed within the Oval Office, he also has a sculptured bust that sits behind him on the ledge. Both of those busts are past presidents, both of which were assassinated. They are headhunters. They are trophy getters. They want another trophy to be mounted on their wall. They are proud of those past assassinations. And they are looking forward to yet another one, but this one is more figuratively, in my eyes, than literal. But they might try to go the literal route, because as far as when Donald Trump was president, do you know how many times per month there was death threats against him? They have been doing everything in their power to bring this man down because they are so fearful, because they know what the prophecies hold. And they want to cling so dearly to this materialistic world. They keep talking about, oh, we need to, tax the rich and all that. They are always talking about the gold. But then we have to consider how Donald Trump views gold too. Golden toilet, Trump Tower. Get away from that monetary garbage. There's no value to gold. There's no value to paper money, coin money. They put the value on it and program you to accept it, because after all, this is still corporate America. And you are all corporate slaves. It's a freedom movement that we are upon, people. You have to understand the prophecies in a more realistic aspect, and not according to those behind the pulpit. Remember, on stage, behind the pulpit, are trained through universities and seminaries and so on and so forth. They're programmed, just like our educational curriculums in schools. It's a program. You go to church, they hand you a piece of paper, a church program. Come on, people, wake up, smell the coffee. And speaking of coffee, it is time for me to have a little bit more and end this reincarnation reading of today. Maybe you've learned something. Maybe your eyes have been opened. There's still more to come. Stay tuned.